Hey folks, Seth here with One Board Dad, and this is a little bit of an odd episode, maybe. It's kind of like a repositioning. I actually recorded a couple of episodes now in a row, and by the time I got to the end of them, they just didn't feel like they went in a reasonable progression. It felt just a little bit weird. So I thought instead I would kind of try to backtrack effectively. So I kind of tried to reset myself to where I was when I started doing those, and not like literally reset, but just kind of put some things in a box. That's my magic box of progression right there. So I didn't lose the progress, but maybe you can roll it out in a way that makes a little bit more sense, and is a little bit more methodical. So that said, also in the process of doing that, I realized that this mod pack is not gonna last or go quite the way that I thought it would. Some of the detailed progression through each individual mod, things like that I would do in like a modern Skyblock 3 kind of playthrough, where you really have to get into each mod and play through it extensively. I don't know that that's really where this is going to go in the long run. I think instead my goal with this playthrough is going to be basically do a couple of episodes now on getting some infrastructure in place, getting EMC generation. There's a couple different ways to do EMC. Well, there's lots of different ways to do EMC generation, but looking at just a handful of ways that I was working on that look like they should be able to give some pretty good, very high volume results from doing it. See what some of those are. So effectively EMC is not a problem at that point. And I mean, I've got a good chunk of EMC even right now with 2 million sitting in there to get us started with all the things that we're going to do to then generate much more EMC. But once we get to that point, then really I think instead of focusing on much of any of the other quests, really what I'm going to focus on is right here, or no, right here, is maybe look at generating a couple of different setups for automation of these. Maybe not all of these. I'd have to look at which ones are like super annoying, but assuming they're not totally obnoxious, maybe just set up one or two per episode automated options for generating these guys to then make infinite money. And then we'll also at some point along the way have to actually unlock enough of the other quests to make $1,000 of investment. That said, another component with this is this mod pack is pretty early in its release, as I mentioned in the very first episode. As such, it looks like, I think even the mod makers are finding, these are places where things can be abused even a little bit, or can be much more, I don't know, the progression can be a little bit interrupted. So I think as they've done a couple of different version releases, they've changed a little bit with like what your starting setup is. Also, they've done some things phasing in and out with some of the mods we're going to play with today, loot bags with loot bag opening and loot bag processing and that kind of thing to get EMC. They're pretty popular method is what we're going to actually look at. This episode is using loot bags to generate large amounts of EMC. So that's kind of phased in and phased out and phased back in terms of its availability within the mod pack and what the creators have made available. So I will say this is, as of right now, I think it's like 1.2.1, something like that. It's a pretty early build, but it's not super early. And yeah, so there's some things where, if you play this a little bit later, it may not actually work the way that I'm saying it will. So hopefully it will, but it's also why I want to throw in like a couple of different options for making EMC from various places. And yeah, that's the spiel. And I think that's enough explanation. So let's get into it. The first thing, like I said, that I would like to look at is making EMC through two components, which one is mob farms. So as you can see there, I've got the structure for a mob farm, so we need to actually fill it with goodies that will kill and spawn and do things. Again, a pretty low-tech mob farm. We're not talking like a big woot mob farm or anything like that at this point, but basically a vector plate and spikes mob farm. From that, we're going to get a lot of materials that we can just throw directly into EMC, things like bones and flesh and ender pearls and all of that stuff. And then we will also get loot bags. So we're going to get loot bags, and traditionally I'm not a very big fan of loot bags. This mod makes me no more of a fan of them, but at the very least, if they're in and the pack is, I wouldn't say the pack is broken, but the pack has mechanisms to get ridiculous amounts of EMC, we may as well use them and convert them into that and go from there. So that's kind of what we're going to set up today, is a mob farm and then a kind of storage mechanism to turn all of those mob goodies into a good amount of EMC. I may not actually work on making it like the most large scale, efficient, save everything, store everything, convert everything kind of approach, but It'll be enough to get the idea across, and we'll kind of progress from there. Because like I said, I really, of all of the options available, this loot bag conversion is probably my least favorite option. I do love mob farms. I mean, pretty much every Skyblock type playthrough or voided world playthrough that I'll do, mob farm is obviously top on the list, because we got to start getting things like ender pearls and bones and flesh and all of those good things, and gunpowder most of the time. But in this pack, it's less of a critical component, because once we get one of them, we can just make as many as we need with EMC. So that said, I think I have hopefully some things over here. Up in here, we just have, I think it's like 15 by 15, I'm pretty sure, space in here that is 3 tall, so we can get Enderman, which is good. Ender pearls are worth quite a bit of EMC. Also, like I said, in most playthroughs, going to be the most useful thing you get from a mob farm anyway. What we're going to first lace it with is some things that my transmutation table, I didn't bother like unlearning things that I've learned along the way. So this should make it a little bit faster. But vector plates, so these are what we're going to use to move mobs around. I think I'm going to need, if there's 15 by 15, I think I need 4 stacks, hopefully. That'll be good. To get these, they are pretty cheap anyway. You can see each individual plate is only 69 EMC. Iron we would have already had. Stone we would have had. We had a sugar cane seed, so just make sugar cane, get sugar, bring the sugar out. I guess I don't know. I assume it's a direct translation. Sugar is 10 EMC. Sugar cane with a space is 32 EMC. Yeah, so definitely convert to sugar first. So take 1 sugar cane, convert it into sugar, and then pull sugar out. Don't pull sugar cane out and convert to sugar if you want to be efficient, I guess. That's interesting. Sometimes there aren't those like perfect alignments, and I'm assuming it's because you get like far enough into the mods or even the vanilla craftings, and things just have to balance in a certain way. So it's interesting to me that this sugar doesn't cost 32, but then something else probably gets out of whack if I was to do, or if that was to be the amount. So there you go, sugar. What else? So this thing's pretty simple. About the only thing that takes some sort of effort, I suppose, is the slime ball. And as you'll notice, most of these slime balls that flow through don't have a EMC value, so that makes them inherently harder to gather in this playthrough than otherwise. Rice balls are definitely obtainable. If you can get a lot of rice, then you can make rice balls, but again, you can't EMC them out. What can basically be EMC'd most readily is regular slime balls, and the way to get those, there's probably another way to get them, but the easy way in this pack, where was it? There was a quest that basically gave me, right here, Tool Forge. So if you do the Tool Forge, build the Tool Forge in Tinkers, it will give you a blue slime sapling and a green slimy dirt, and then this will give you coagulated slime blocks that you can turn into green slime. So you get your green slime off of the blue slime sapling, no big deal. There would be that. So that gave me the slime that I needed to get the vector plates. We'll go ahead and just throw these down just because I can ramble while I talk, I suppose, with these. Except that the torches are going to be a problem. Maybe I won't do that just yet. The other thing that we will be using to kill mobs is going to then be, I think it's what, extra utilities, but does it make the spikes? Is that what it is? Yeah, extra utility spikes. These are going to be the killing mechanisms in this simple setup. So wooden spikes are going to reduce to half heart, but doesn't kill anything, so you have to go in and whack it yourself. Not obviously useful for an automated setup. If you use stone spikes or iron spikes, it will kill whatever is bumping into them, but you'll get just normal drops. So things like, I think you'll get ender pearl still, you'll get the rotten flesh, but you won't get probably like zombie brains. You won't get spider eyes because they're a player only drop, that kind of thing. So there's some weird things that you won't get, and I don't think you'll get loot bags, and you won't get things like armors and all that stuff that drops. You get into golden spikes, mobs drop experience, and then what I need to test out, I initially was going to go with diamond spikes because you get that player kill only items, right? And there's some of those items that I want that are player kill only, but I wasn't getting experience, so I'm still a little concerned. I thought it was experience or like plus experience for gold, so you also get the experience in the normal drops. But then I thought diamond spikes was just experience drops and player kill only items, but I wasn't having a lot of success with that. So we'll see. If I'm still going to go with the diamond spikes just because it's what I want to use. But so if we look at spikes, I made a couple of them. I basically went from iron into diamonds, but they're not super cheap. If we look at, whoops, that doesn't work in this situation. If we look at recipe, basically you get 4 of them for using however many diamonds this is. That's, I think, 18 diamonds. So it's pretty expensive to set up. Again, you probably could get away with literally just 1, but I just used 3 for whatever reason. And then you can always put individual ones back in. So there's 36,000 EMC to get in place. That's kind of a lot, but that's all right. We'll make it work. And actually, we'll need one more thing. The item I'm going to use to gather everything is, honestly, a hopper hawk would be better. And from Ender.io. And I'm almost tempted to go that route this time instead. What I actually built the concept around is to use nope, maybe not hoppers. No, do I not have a vacuum hopper? Well, maybe I'll need to make another one. This guy is pretty helpful. So vacuum hopper from Open Blocks. It's an Eye of Ender, a hopper, and an obsidian. So hopper. So there's lots, well, not lots. There's a number of items in the pack that will pick up things at range. What was the other thing? Ender. But this is the one that I like. Again, if it, wait, why is my clicking not working to move that up? Oh well. There we go. This is one I like. Theoretically, if there were experience dropping, it can gather up experience as well as the items then. The only real thing I don't like with the vacuum hopper as opposed to like a hopper hawk, and I'm not even sure with the, what's the other one called? Why is that not working? There we go. The Dark Utilities one with the Ender Hopper. I don't actually know. Maybe this will tell me. Teleports nearby to it. Sneak plus right click on the hopper should display the reach of the hopper unless disabled. Maybe. I can't really get at this point anything with Wither Dust anyway. I probably could get around to doing something with this mob farm to actually put witch water into it and create wither skeletons, but I'm not at that point just yet of really being that concerned. That said, I think what we're gonna do, as I mentioned, I wasn't really getting any experience anyway, so I'm gonna pretty much build this out with the assumption that I'm not getting experience drops. But I don't think I ever actually finished my thought on what the problem with the Ender Hopper is. It is our vacuum hopper. It's the fact that it needs some sort of like pathway. It has to have open access to what it's sucking up, as opposed to like a hopper hawk. And I'm guessing probably the Ender Hoppers, since it specifically mentions teleporting, you don't need line of sight effectively. Like you can teleport directly through the wall from the Ender Hopper, no big deal. This one, you have to be able to get to it. So I'm putting it right, and we'll look inside where that kind of lines up right here. And then basically what I'm going to do is put my diamond spikes right there. So we're going to push all the mobs into right here, and then hopefully it will let me pick up the materials right through here. So that's the deal. We're going to go with this. Let me just, I don't know why I'm holding shift. Doesn't need to be. You can hold shift with these vector plates if you want to not be affected by their movement, but otherwise they will move you all over the place. Kind of obnoxious. There we go. Then on the front side, I just want to make sure that they kind of get to that Ender Hopper without too much trouble. So I'm going to push them, the mobs that spawn, I'm going to push them out from the wall first. Oops. And then push them in towards the middle. So I don't know, anyone who's watched any Minecraft videos is going to have seen a vector plate mob farm skyblock kind of thing. At least if you're fortunate enough in a pack to have vector plates. If you're not, then you inevitably make kind of the weird, like super high, you know, whatever it would be, like axes, like the cross thing with the water in the middle that drops the mobs, pushes the mobs down. That always drives me crazy because like I said, I want ender pearls, and you can't use water to move around endermen because it makes them angry. So otherwise this is pretty much just a straightforward, like put things in here. And so the reason we use vector plates is, as you saw, it will move things. So it's moving me. I can't afford really to be touching those diamond spikes. So the reason we use it is it moves things, but also it can just sit on top of the block, and it is still a spawnable block. So things can literally spawn right on top of these, which makes them super powerful. in mob farming setups. This would be totally scalable, however big you wanted to make it, for extra blocks of spawning pads and things like that. So I'm not really, again, like we don't need a ton. And really, once we get into the point of taking loot bags and converting them into EMC, we're not getting most of our EMC from the actual boss, or not boss, but the mob drops themselves anyway. We're getting most of it from the loot bags. So realistically, if you wanted to go that route, most folks, from what I've seen and just kind of seeing videos online for this pack so far, look like they're taking, they may not even get to the point of building a mob farm to do this. They may just use a block called the recycler to basically create their loot bags themselves and then go from there. So you don't even necessarily need a mob farm to get this to work. All the mob farm really does is give you access to a couple of items, and once you have those items, you can EMC them out to your content. Let me go here, grab some more stone so I can plug this hole. I think that's everything we need up here. Why am I going sideways? Why am I going sideways? Okay, so that, just a normal 15 by 15 spawnable. Boop, boop, boop. And everything should be fine and hunky-dory, dandy, all those good things for right now. So things will spawn, things will die, but then things will be gathered up and will kind of bottleneck here in the vacuum hopper. So that's the first thing that needs to be done, is we need to take just the mob drops and drop them into something. So the two things that I'm going to use, I know I have one of them here, the energy condenser. So anything that can be condensed, I want it to just be condensed, basically. So we'll even just set up right here. We're gonna drop down in here, and then, I don't know, we'll pull it out to like right here. So anything that can be condensed, I'm gonna want it to route to that. I'm gonna use, I think at this point, Ender Conduit. So I don't think we had looked at this, but basically you just need to make some of this conduit binder, which is just gravel, sand, clay. So things we would already have. Then you just need to, fire it to make 2, and then you can EMC it to your heart's content. And then the item conduit itself, you'll need some pulsating iron nuggets, which I believe I made in a casting table. So you just need to throw basically like 1 ender pearl and 1 thing of iron, and I think you get like 2 iron or pulsating iron ingots out, something like that. But again, once you get the pulsating iron ingot, it is EMCable, so you just need to make 1, and then you can have as many of these nuggets as you want. So easy enough to get item conduits. Probably not the best thing to use here. Best thing is probably an XNet setup, and we might actually convert it over, even though I feel kind of silly because that's basically what everyone's using in this kind of loot bag looping structure. I want some more light. I can't really see in here. Can I put torch there? No. So I might even go with the XNet approach, but for right now I'm just going to use item conduits. They're good enough. So I can actually connect there. So the vacuum hopper, you have 2 interfaces. One is the item outputs, one is the XP outputs. Like I said, I'm at this point going to just pretend like XP doesn't exist. If it does, then I could always run like a liquid conduit there and take it to a tank or something instead. But either way, we'll push out the bottom. So basically, you just got to pick like where you want the items to come out of the hopper. And so I'm going to push them out the bottom, which I guess I'll have to set a new one there. And then basically we'll just have a connect in. The other thing I'm going to want is to be able to store, and I don't think I can do, nope, I don't think I have that there, is to do something to store the loot bags. So if we take the loot bags, if we look at the loot mod, look at the loot mod, there's basically 3 blocks that are going to be of interest. One is the bag opener, one is the loot recycler, and one is the bag storage. This mod, or this block, the bag storage, hasn't been touched really at all. I'm surprised I don't have it in here. Storage, nope, guess I don't. This one has been left in. Like, this one's not a concern. This will store all the bags that the mobs drop. So we're gonna need stone, iron. Oops, that is not how you spell iron. Iron, there we go. And what was it, chests? There we go. We only need 1 of them. I'll make 2 just so I can teach 1, just in case for again. But let me see. Yep, okay, good. So what this does is creates an interface where, oh, you're not where I really want you to go. It's not actually where I wanted it to go. I wanted it to just be a line here, but I think that works. I think that's fine. Yeah, that's good. I don't really have any loot bags, I don't think. right off the cuff. But basically what winds up happening is when mobs drop, loot bags will go in here, and then you can kind of see I can cycle. It lets you convert some amount of other loot bags into whatever amount of loot bags you want. So you can make the bigger, higher, better loot bags, or you can take one of those and make a whole lot of the lower common loot bags. So it's basically just a way to store them. And then the other thing I'm going to want is eventually there will be things that the mobs are dropping that cannot be turned into EMC, cannot be loot bags, and I'm just going to get rid of. Oops, that's not the chest I was supposed to look into. This is my my breakdown when I broke everything down. So there's some things in there that, why is this over here? There we go. That I'll use to kind of keep the system going. But the other thing I use is then a trash chest. I like this trash chest. I don't even know what it comes from. Extra utilities again, because it's basically a trash can, but it has an inventory, so it'll fill up, and then I'm not exactly sure 100% how it decides which one it overwrites, but if you try to put something else in there, it'll basically trash the item, but it'll store items. So like if I even put these in there, they don't show up well. It's kind of glitchy. But if I go back in, these exist still. They're not trashed technically, but if it starts to overflow and there's more things going into it, I assume it takes like the last one or the first thing to go in gets rid of it. So I assume it's like a first in, first out kind of option there for overwriting it, but it acts as a trash chest, and overflow should be good, should work. This guy is going to be set to extract. We're always going to extract from the vacuum hopper. I like the Ender IO conduits because we have enough flexibility to make this happen and enough speed without having to really mess with it too much. This guy is never going to extract, so we're only going to insert. I need to work the priority. I always get confused with this. I should have played with it more consistently. If high priority means that it'll go there first, or if it'll go there last. But I'm going to go with the assumption that high priority means first place to go. So we're going to go high priority on this loot bag. We're going to insert, and right now we're not going to extract anything. I'll probably pull the loot bags out separate from this. And then on the EMC, we'll say it's like the second place I want it to go, insert, extract, and there we go. Then the only thing I should really need to do is load up this energy condenser with something I want it to create. So I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I guess not cheat, but use some of my progress. You might not have dark matter. If you don't have dark matter unlocked yet, and if we even look at this, it's basically just have to work your way through the fuels. So it's a block of diamond, so whatever that is, 73,000 EMC, and then you have to make these Eternalis fuels. So that's 4 Mobius. Mobius is 4 alchemicals, and alchemicals are 4 coals. So I think in the end, 4 times 4 times 4. Wait, let me think through it. 4 of these coal equals 1 of these. 4 of those equals 1 of those. 4 of those equals down here 1 of those. So I think every Eternalis represents a stack of coal. I think that's what it is. So this is basically to get the dark matter. You're looking at 8 stacks of coal and a block of diamond. So I think that's what it adds up to. So I have it. If you don't have it, what I would recommend, I'm guessing you'll have emerald. I would pull 9 of these out. Whoops. And make a block of emerald to start with, at the very least. Because that's a big chunk as well. That's actually more EMC than the dark matter. It's just easier, well, maybe not easier, but more likely you'll have diamond or emeralds kicking around instead. But I'm going to use dark matter because it's something useful. It'll help make equipment and things, and it's just a big beefy chunk of dark matter or of EMC. So I'll put it up here, and this energy condenser will basically start taking items such as, let's say, stone, and convert them to EMC and basically try to create dark matter off of them. So I can't actually use the dark matter to generate the dark matter, but if I put the iron ingots in there, we'll start getting a lot closer. Still not even close to enough to generate 1 dark matter, but that kind of gets everything up and running. So if I walk away, let's just let some things start to spawn, and then we'll go see how it's working, make sure everything's flowing where we want it to. See if I can remember how to make the mini map and zoom out just a little bit. There we go. It should work, pretty sure. There we go. Things are starting to spawn in there, little yellow dots moving, going to the middle, running to the spikes. They shall die an dishonorable death. At some point, maybe I already did. Not dead yet. Sounds like they're dead. Okay, so here I should have had this actually be 0, because then I could know if things got there, but and an item conduit, which is kind of weird that it actually went over here because, so that has the lowest, because it should have sent the item conduit into here because it has EMC. So it's a little bit weird that it didn't. Also didn't get any bags. I'm going to assume that it's working though, because I think it's right. The only thing that would concern me just a little bit is if the trash can starts to fill up extensively with these other things. So we'll see if that works. That said, that should start to go. I will need it to prime just a little bit to get some bags in there. So hopefully some things will happen. Otherwise, I'll just shift over to the mob, or to at least the bag storage block that I've had linked into a mob farm for a while prior to this. There we go, we got at least one. And over here, nothing. Over here, more. So I think it's working. I think this is set up correctly. So then, I mean, you'll get some EMC. And actually what I think I'll do right now is just let this run for 5 minutes. Just so we can see, okay, we're starting with 24,000 EMC. In 5 minutes, let's see how much EMC we have and how many loot bags we have, just to get kind of a feel for flow rate with this, like I said, 15 by 15 mob farm. So I'm going to sit here literally on this bed and just stare at that for 5 minutes. Counting now. All right. I haven't been sitting here for the entire 5 minutes. I've been creating a couple of things right there that I think we're going to use for next step to make this go a little bit further. But let's go see what we have. I'm going to guess not a ton of EMC, but a lot of loot bags. That's my guess. So we were at what, like 24,000? I think we've gotten, I don't know, 20, 30,000 in 5 minutes. EMC purely from the mob drops being converted over. In terms of trash chest, nothing has come through that couldn't be turned to EMC apparently, if things are working correctly. This is, yep, nothing's stuck in there. You can see, well, I don't have any experience even filling this, which it should be sucking the experience into its internal buffer at the very least, even if I don't have a place to send it to. So I don't know, something's weird with experience. I may change the diamond spikes to gold spikes just to see if it changes the outcome here, because I'm just kind of curious, because that's not how I thought those worked. But loot bags, 566, so that's good. That'll give me enough. So the question is what to do with these loot bags, and the basic idea, if we were to literally just physically look at here, like I said, we can cycle and pull different types of bags, but if we pull literally just common loot bag, right? If I pull, I don't know, this is that 10, I think? Let's move everything out here real quick. I think that's 10. If we took 10 of these and just right click, open them manually, you can see I'm getting all this stuff. Whoops. All the things. Keep getting the stuff. And some of them are actually pretty valuable in terms of an EMC, right? So these are much more useful in my mind than, I think it's everything, than the amount of EMC we were getting from the mob farm itself. So, you know, if we look here, we've got, obsidian's not really all that valuable. Bone's not that great, but the iron helmet's 1200 EMC, iron pick 700. We didn't get, you can get diamonds and emeralds, which is really where your EMC comes in. There's a couple hundred, a couple thousand. That goes. I don't want to just like EMC out everything I own. The downside is you also get a lot of things that you can't EMC. Whoa, I just lost my, what was that, filter. You get a lot of things that you can't EMC, so this is what we need to figure out what to do with eventually. Right now it's just going to go in there. Yeah, so opening them gets so much more EMC than otherwise. So we're going to set it up to take advantage of that. There's other, like I said, fancier ways to get this to work, but I'm going to go with, I think, 10 bag openers. It just feels like a good number. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to put the bag opener probably right there and there. I think that'll work. Now the problem is I need to get all the way behind here. Can I get some slabs? Do I have any slabs that just come through here? Wooden slabs. I don't think stone slabs can actually be EMC'd. I don't really know why. It seems weird. But maybe because they're well, I don't know. Wood shouldn't be any different. So I guess the EMC for a slab is technically like half an EMC, so maybe that's why it doesn't work. Otherwise, you would just create EMC. Like if they were just one EMC even, you would, oh, am I not gonna be able to reach that? I hope I can. Ooh, can I? There we go, okay, I still get it. So these are gonna basically extract bags. You can set it to extract whatever you want. So we're gonna extract common loot bags. You could turn this up, like I said, to something like an uncommon, rarity, or rare, but you're getting so fewer bags in comparison. I'm gonna run it with just the one. And especially without my mobs spawning at the moment, this is not gonna be able to keep up. I'm gonna run out loot bags. But for right now, this will give kind of good indication. And then we're just gonna tell it to insert in to each of these. And that is going to be pretty simple. So this is where, like I said, people are using like XNet to have this channel set up, and then there we go. This one's like really very, very specific on where I click. But using that XNet to kind of create the first channel to set up the insertion of the bags, and then kind of separate channels to do something with the materials that you pull out of it. I can't remember if I hit on, obviously, the idea behind a loot, what's it called? A bag opener is it's going to open the bags. That's what it does. So that's the automation of that block. This is one of the blocks, and that's not what I wanted to do. This is one of the blocks where for a short period of time, like one small update, the developers had pulled it out altogether. So you couldn't have a bag opener. That meant you couldn't automate the process of opening a loot bag. So that seems to me, honestly, like a pretty good thing to do because these things are just kind of nuts. It looks like it is eventually filling up out here, so it's fast enough to keep all 10 of them full, assuming that the bag storage actually can keep up with it. So that said, it'll eventually fill up pretty quickly, and we'll have a bunch of stuff. Grab these. I lost my other pair. There we go. Yeah, so you can kind of look in here and see what kind of things you're going to get with the loot bag openings and all that stuff. That said, the next step would basically be just to pull all of it out and dump it in an energy condenser. And then I think I would just trash everything else, to be perfectly honest. At this point, at least, you can see there's things that you're going to get that you can't EMC. So things like teleportation wands. You could get things like actually addition to materials. You could definitely set something up to keep a hold of all of them, but quite frankly, I don't need them. So I don't see a reason to set up a complex thing to cycle them in or just store them or whatnot. They're just not necessary. I don't have, I don't even know what Redstonia is used for, but I know I don't need a bunch of them in terms of my plans for progressing. If I do, I can just grab, 27 stacks of redstone, drop them in front of a, whatever it is, the little pew-pewer for actually additions. What's it called? Well, where is it? Now, I could say, like, if we were getting empowered stuff, and that's where let's look in this situation. Here's where I was keeping some of them. If I was getting empowered items, then maybe, yeah, then it would be worth keeping. But at this point, even emeralds, quite frankly, it's just not going to be worth it. With the sheer amount of EMC I'm getting, I can pull emeralds anytime I want and just have them. And there's just not very many uses, I don't think, for the emeradic crystal. As far as I can tell, like I said, I haven't done too terribly much with it, but with actual additions outside of it's always a thing in a mod to need to unlock it, because it seems like the thing to make progression somewhat tied to actual additions to always add a little bit of these like redstone crystals or palace crystals or something into a recipe you need to progress in a different mod. But I don't really care at this point, to be honest, about those. The other things, let's just see what we would get. That I definitely don't care about pickaxes. I don't care about, well, these will even go in anyway. Name tags. I don't care about specific enchants. Things that don't have EMC on them. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Most things will have EMC outside the Redstonia. You get some items, like you won't get these Black Lotus. So we could set up something where maybe we want to have like the Black Lotus be kept separate. Anything else? I don't care about gears. Like I said, most of this, I definitely don't care about these Technicolor glasses. There's only so many pairs of those that I could possibly need. Don't care about filled tin cans, I don't think. Look at those emeralds, right? Like 32,000 just from that bag being opened. So the Black Lotus could be useful, but even then, My plans with Botania are to create massive amounts of mana without having any need for Black Lotus. So it's just unnecessary items at this point. So the only thing I can think of that I've seen that has dropped that looks like it's kind of unique, and I don't really know how useful they'll be, are these weird machine upgrades. So this is some sort of power holding device, capacitor of holding, unremarkable capacitor. I really don't know what these are, but these seem to be somewhat unique. And the other thing is the iridium and iridium ore. I would probably want iridium going forward, but I'm not even too concerned with that, to be perfectly honest. I think for this setup, I'm literally going to just EMC anything that can EMC and trash anything that can't. The other natural loot a lot of people will use is the loot recycler to be able to take some of those items. So like if I was to take this, and if we took some things that can't normally be EMC'd, so if we took the, I don't know, the teleportation wand, and I mean, so much stuff can be EMC'd. It's not a big deal. It's just these wands for the most part, these glasses. I'm just trying to find a couple examples that'll actually give me enough return. Industrial craft. Maybe this will work. You can take this recycler and just start dropping items in. There you go. I got enough. And it'll make you a loot bag. So then people a lot of times are taking the leftovers that you can't EMC, throwing it into the loot recycler, and then going from there. And I don't know. I just don't see the necessity, I guess, in that situation. Because like I said, I'm going to have enough loot bags, and this is only going to make so many. A lot of people then are alternatively using this to generate large amounts of loot bags. And I think, what was it that I saw people were using? I almost think it was, somebody had used ash at one point. I think you can just put coal in there, to be perfectly honest. Like if you just threw a bunch of coal in, actually maybe it's gravel? I don't know, let's just try gravel. If I put 4 stacks of gravel in here, it won't even take it. Maybe sand. 1 stack of sand at least creates a bag. So you can put some different items in there and you could make all of it. And basically, in the end, what I've done is replaced the need or the use of this loot recycler thing with a mob farm. Because that's really what the mob farm is doing, is it's just giving me a supply of loot bags. The things that it is dropping are effectively irrelevant at this point. But I prefer it to this loot bag cycling thing. At least I feel like I'm playing the Minecraft at that point. All of that said, in rambling tones, all I really need to do then is just extract out of here. And probably just tie it to this, to be perfectly honest. And I'm going to take this out of the equation altogether so it doesn't connect there. And I'm just going to let it feed out of there and into the normal place that it's going. I think that's my plan. Oh, there's my sword. Hey, give me that back. So then we can go in and I can, let's look here, right? We are at 50,000 dark matter, or not 50,000 dark matter, 50,000 EMC is all that's in here. And actually I can't really break it without this going really crazy. So then all I need to do is go through here and auto extract. Not you. I can see why people use the accent. It also prevents you from having to like set every one of these nodes manually. But again, it's not like this is super complicated in its setup. If you did want to use something a little more sophisticated, obviously you could then, and I was even initially expecting to do that, use the basic filter to set up some items that you do want to keep, that you don't want to trash, or that you want to just store, etc., etc. But you can see this is doing nothing but just explosive growth. So I'm already at 550,000 EMC in dark matter just right there, and this thing is struggling to keep up with really the backlog of the openings. So if we go into the chest, I am dumping a bunch of stuff. Like, I get it. It's not efficient. If you want to save this stuff, just set up something that will... Ooh, I want this, though. Give me that. I may decide that I want one of these to be exceptions. Like I said, this capacitor-looking thing and this other machine upgrade from Ender.io, those may be worth keeping. I don't see any point in keeping the actual addition stuff. It's just not not something that's going to be a stressor for my materials. I could also see keeping the iridium, I suppose. And the same thing with the Britannia Black Lotus. It's not enough mana to be meaningful in the scope of the mana that I plan on creating. So I think we're good, in my opinion. That's my thought. You could, like I said, stick it into a recycler and have that go back to get a few more loot bags, because we're going to run out of loot bags pretty quick. But I'm also just literally standing here and we're not getting any in feed. So I just want to see what this gets to. But in that amount of time I've been talking, it's created 1.6 million EMC. So you can see this is where the EMC comes from, is the loot bag conversion. And it's also, I don't really care for it. The other thing I will say is, like I said, if I just walk away, well, here, let's do another test. I want to look at here. We have 100 bags in here right now. I'm going to walk away. Well, let's say I keep walking away too early. We have 2 million EMC and 90 chests, or 90 bags. I'm going to walk away for another 5 minutes, and then I'll come back. We'll go back and look and see how much EMC I have, and if I'm making or losing loot bags in the process. So back in 5 more minutes. All right, another 5 minutes gone. So let's just throw that egg and see what we have. So the first thing would be in terms of the storage bag itself. We are out, so we cannot keep up. The mob farm is not keeping this full. So that means the rate at which I was generating things is not sustainable with 10 of these bag openers. So that's where you probably do get into the question of, well, okay, should we be using the loot recycler? And I don't remember where I put it. There we go. I may integrate this into the system between episodes just to see if it does stabilize me, but I'm going to guess that 10 of these just work super fast. That said, those got me up to 3.2 million EMC, so I was at 2 before, so that's only 1.2 million. I think the idea is that it must run out of bags real fast. So it's not bad. Like I said, if you want to use that infinite loop, you can do something where you just feed this guy, or not this guy, feed this recycler something that will turn it into bags in a very quick fashion and then just send it back into the system. I think that would be perfectly fine. Trying to think what that would look like. You basically want to set it up to have a higher priority than the trash can. So you'd want basically everything EMC to go in the EMC, and then the ability for things to go into the loot recycler. Potentially. Maybe like this. And then Would that work? Maybe something like that. Perhaps. And we'll make that well, no, because then I'm worried that things that are coming out from above will go into there. So I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Like I said, I think it'll be all right. If I had to, I could even just take out 2 of these bag openers and have it all stabilize. Either way, it's going to make a ton of good stuff for me. I'm pretty sure for right now, I'm going to pull this out, put 3 million more EMC into my table, and yeah, that'll be fine. I think that'll work. That said, I would go ahead and recommend at this point, if we were to pull a bunch of dark matter out, to go over here and pull a bunch of diamonds, then probably the next thing I would look at is creating all of the Project E dark matter items. So dark matter helmets, dark matter tools. So if we were to look there, we can make this pickaxe out of dark matter. I could make an axe out of dark matter. I can make a shovel, dark matter, a sword. I don't really need a hoe. I don't need shears, and I don't need a hammer. So those are the main things I'd make, and then you can make the armor itself. Looks like I actually don't maybe have quite enough dark matter, to be perfectly honest. Maybe short just a little bit. I can pull 5 more and not? I don't know. We'll see if I get quite close enough. Legs, I think I have just enough, to be perfectly honest. There we go. So at that point, we can make a set of dark armor and have a set of dark tools, or at least the important sets of dark tools for just our normal breaking and gathering and picking and all that good stuff. So there we go. That is converting. Go over here. Anything super cool, super fun? Nothing that I can see. I think that's the only thing I wanted to throw in there. I guess I'll take you out just for good measure. And I'll take you out and you out just for good measure. Does that work? You. That'll work. And throw you in there. Okay. So now we have a bunch of armor, a bunch of good gear. We'll go like the super upgrade weird sound. Can I kill a sheep with this? Let's make sure this at least works for that. Missed. Pow! Okay, sheeps can die. So apparently it must be super powerful at that point, if that will work. So, like I said, the basics there, it should work. Should be good. Loot bags will come down from the sky. Get all this stuff. So I think that's good for now. That's how mob farms will create EMC. I'll be letting that thing run. Obviously, in the background, it should just continuously accumulate. It's not really my choice for how to make EMC, even though, again, with the loot bags and the recycler and some loops there, you can make infinite EMC and make it super fast. And that's fine and dandy if that's what you want. Push that button and progress accordingly. So that said, next episode, we're going to try a different form of EMC generation that is actually a little bit more appealing to me. I like the balance of it, even though it's, I don't know, it feels almost just as print EMC-ish as this does. So that said, it is preferable to me. I enjoy it. It's still pretty simple. It just takes a little bit of grind, and then you'll be rolling in the EMC as well. So thank you so much for coming by. Hope you are enjoying. Hope you're enjoying the pack. I'm not sure if you're like me, finding that it's not quite what I initially thought it would be in terms of the progression and the playthrough and how I would approach this. But that said, we will, like I said, do a couple of EMC episodes and then do a couple of automation episodes to get dollars and then just see where we go from there. Might just be going into a different progression mod pack or something. So that said, thank you so much for coming by. Hope you have an amazing time wherever you go from here, and I will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.